Okay, guys, you guys ready? It seemed that everybody likes my Japanese style angled bowls. So I'm gonna go ahead and make another one. Um, this is about 4 3/4 pounds. Why is it 4 3/4? Because it was the leftover from a bag. And it seemed like a good number. I'm sure there's some sort of maybe scientific sacred geometry number to that. All right, guys, so my wheel's going medium speed. I started in sort of this grimace gumdrop shape. Gonna push down to make it stick. Elbows on my legs. This is what it's like being in my class, by the way. Hands attached, elbows on your legs, get into the Zen zone. Start to cone left palm towards forefingers. Follow the clay up. And start to cone down. Centering one part of clay. Pop those air bubbles, because I said I wedged it and I don't like wedging. Bigger piece of clay means bigger tools. Lots of air bubbles. So I'm going to use this whole hand to start to push it down. Use my thumb to get rid of that air bubble. So now we're 4 pounds, 10 ounces. I'm pushing in with my left palm, down with my right. Make sure my aura ring stays out of there just so it doesn't create any shapes. Big fan of my aura ring. Once you learn how to throw with it on, it's actually awesome. So quick funny story, I took it off for a cylinder boot camp and it ended up in the reclaim bucket. And then it ended up in the pug mill. Then someone was making a slab and they found it. It still works. I'll be writing to Aura about that. I just did that so you didn't have to listen to me center clay. I'm always good for stories while I'm doing something relatively boring. All right, so there is my centered clay. Now, although I'm gonna make a bowl that's relatively wide up on the top, the base is gonna be narrow. So what I'm starting with is really a cylinder that I'm gonna stretch out. But what's really important about this shaped bowl, when I make my walls, I wanna make sure that it gradually gets thicker as I get to the top, because I'm gonna stretch that out. And once I stretch that out, that lip is gonna get a lot thinner. So if I start with a lip that's about 3/4 of an inch, when I stretch it out to here, it should become thinner. And I tell all of you guys often that I think that these Japanese style bowls are actually cylinders. So, and I am not gonna put a foot on this. So I open up the bottom as if it's a cylinder. Check my base. Again, my clay is a little thicker. My bowl's a little bigger, so I go with a little bit of a thicker floor. So that's about a 1/2 inch. Now I want to think about how narrow do I want the bottom, and I think I want it about that narrow, so that's how wide I'm gonna open up. I'm gonna use lots of fingers because it's a bigger piece of clay. Open up towards me, and I am about 4 inches wide down on the bottom. And I didn't scoop because, again, I don't consider this a bowl. I consider this a cylinder because the bottom has a right angle to it. That's just me. So what I can do now is do that sort of claw. I'm gonna just sort of push that in a little. You have the ability to kind of recenter your clay if you throw it off, only with larger clay though. Smaller clay, it's a lot harder to do this. If you throw it off center, I'll put my left hand here locked into my body. I'll create this sort of claw and I'll just sort of sit here. If your clay was relatively centered to begin with, you should be able to get it back in line. It's a matter of just rearranging a couple of clay grains. If it was off center to begin with, if you didn't put your thumb in the middle, pretty much screwed. So now we're gonna go in here. Notice I'm gonna use a lot of fingers on the inside, lots of fingers on the outside. I am not a knuckle puller, but if you wanted to use a knuckle, you could at this point. There's no reason for me to teach myself something that I don't do. There are plenty of potters out there who use their knuckles. This is that corrective pull that I talk about all the time to sort of even it out. My inside fingers jumped a little, so I'm gonna compress that. I'm gonna be a little more aggressive to get a lot of pulls. With your clay getting bigger, it doesn't mean you get more pulls. It means that you could be more aggressive as you pull up. I'm getting this sort of gallery thing on the top as if I'm making a lidded pot. So I'm gonna go ahead and compress that back into, I might be keeping my lip a little too thick. Sort of similar to when I tell you not to go flat when you're coning, before you cone, because the outsides will come up around and create a volcano. I think that's what was going on here. We'll start down here again. Notice I'm just sort of insinuating that it's gonna go out a little. Less pressure at the top. So as of right now, I'm really just trying to get all the walls even. I don't really care as much. I just don't want to get too thin at the top at any point. Notice on my outside, I've increased the size of my tool. I'm using 3 fingers on the outside and 3 fingers on the outside, on the inside. All these fingers, my pinky still is not really doing much, but they're all in the sponge, and then these fingers are on the inside. I'm sweating a little, so it's a little bit more work too. Get the water out of the inside. Now I'm going to start to pay attention to keeping this thinner and stretching it out just a little bit. So here I can almost get the desired thickness. At the end, I want to leave it a little thicker so that when I bring this out here, it still has a little bit of stability with a thicker lip. A little bit more clay up from the bottom. Shove that under the existing walls. Stretch it. More pressure on my inside hand. Bringing my elbow closer to my body. A little bit of an air bubble bump in there. So I first took classes with an artist named Mary Rame in SUNY New Paltz, and she makes the most beautiful, perfect, symmetrical pots. And then after that, I took it with the late Jolyon Hofstede, and Jolyon Hofstede was like, nah, make a perfect pot and then throw dirt on the side of it, put some floor cleaner on there and see if it creates a glaze. So that juxtaposition of instructors really helped me see that there's no such thing as a perfect pot, and we sort of embrace these little things that happen. So get rid of all that, preconceived notion that you're going to make something look like a Fiesta ware made in a factory. People wouldn't buy it if it was perfect. They wouldn't believe it was handmade. All right, so I've got sort of this sort of V shape going on. Hopefully that little bit of imperfection doesn't make this more difficult than it needs to be. All right, so what I want to do, I keep on just reinforcing that nice little angle that I like at the bottom. So you guys know I'm a big fan of this goofy big green thing. I love it because it has the hole. And it really allows me to stretch it, get a good grip of it without having to worry about my outside tool going up with it. So maybe you want a heat gun now, depends on how thick your clay is. This is a standard 563, but I actually made this a few days ago because I was gonna make a video and someone came in, and I don't make videos when people are here. So I stopped, I went to the beach for a few days, and now it's a little thicker, but 563 does tend to be soft, so you do normally want to add, do some heat gun to it, but we're gonna risk it. So I have this leaning on the bat, and I have it at that first stage, and now I'm gonna start to push. My elbow is stable, my sponge is wet. I am not concerned by the wobble. I'm just gonna see what happens when I get to the top. Stretch that lip out. Yeah, so that wobble really did affect things, but hey, you know what? You really only see the wobble if the wall's moving. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and do the next stage, which is gonna be a little bit more of an angle. See how far I can really push this lip. see I've pushed it out just a little bit more. I'm not as concerned with the bottom part being straight because I can trim that. Definitely always more concerned with the top part because I don't really believe in trimming the top 90% of your pot. Trimming is for finessing, not for carving a pot out of a mound of clay. All right, so my issue is that I have this sort of thin spot here. And that is sort of creating a little bit of an issue. I don't know if that was where that air bubble was. I'm gonna go on the inside a little here, sort of see if I can sort of get something to support it underneath it. Remember, the outside isn't as relevant because you can trim the outside. The inside is a lot more important. And you do want the top to be even so that when you flip it upside down, you can, I'm sorry, so that it's straight. I got distracted by the wobble myself. I hope the wobble's not distracting you because again, if we stop it, you don't see the wobble, so I'm not as concerned. I'm gonna call this a pot and I'm gonna get rid of the inside here. I know I made it start again, so the wobble may be bothering you. So I'm gonna get rid of the outside. Again, I'm not really doing a foot, so I am gonna trim it, but I don't need to leave so much clay because I don't want to be fooled by what the inside looks like. I'm gonna clean my bat a little here. Sorry to disturb you again with it wobbling. You can see where it sort of goes awry is right around here. I got a little thin. I'm not sure if it was while I was talking or what it is, but close one eye. So with these, I do try and decide what type of angle I want for my lip. I don't know if I want it straight or if I want it aiming down. I think this one I have sort of aiming down at me. Take your eye away from the wonk on the inside. So, all right, guys. 4 pounds, 10 ounces, straight edge bowl. I'm gonna actually hopefully be able to get to trim this on video for you guys because you guys can then see how I make the outside look like the inside. So the inside does sort of do this a little bit. I'm going to show you guys in a sec. So you guys can see on the inside that it does sort of slope in a little bit. I'm going to mimic that from the trimming part of it all. And hopefully you'll be able to get an idea of how my inside's going to look like the outside. I'm going to fix that center part too, because the more that I look at it, it bugs me a little bit. Maybe I'll put a little swirl in there, kind of distract the eye. And then I'll have to do less to the inside of the bowl because to me, the inside is boring. That's it. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please go ahead and subscribe on the bottom. Watch some of my other videos and have a great day.